the diagnosis, and of course, I started doing my research about what autism was all about. And the one thing that was very clear was that the sooner we started the interventions, the better. And so I had this one friend whose daughter had sensory processing disorder. And I told her that, I don't know where to even start or what to look for. And my son has been diagnosed with autism. What do I do? And she directed me to an occupational therapist. Now, Singapore in those days had very limited practitioners or therapists. Occupational therapy and sensory integration therapy and all was fairly new. So I went to this one person who everybody seemed to know and go to. And so she started sensory integration therapy with Moise. And I remember explaining sensory integration dysfunction to Usman, and we were both like, what exactly is this? Yes, we have our sensory organs, our ears, our nose, and all of that. And I guess we all take these things for granted, right? They work fine. But what does it actually mean that you don't... you can't feel your body, or you don't know if you're sitting or standing, or if you're spinning, you can't feel the movement, and maybe a sound that Usman and I, or the rest of us can hear and be fine with. Moise may have a big issue with that. So that really took a little bit of time to digest, but it explained his lying down, the behaviors, the proprioception bit, right, where he would lie down on the floor and push his body into the hard floor to feel his body. So that explained it, but still we struggled with that quite a bit. Anyway, we went ahead with the occupational therapy. She would put him on swings, the occupational therapist, and swing him and do stuff which I would wonder, this is something I can do at home. What's the big deal? What's therapy about it? But later on, of course, I began to understand these things much more. And so occupational therapy was the first thing, and then speech therapy, and the third thing was TEACCH. There was one autism specific sort of center. Anita Russell was the specialist in those days, and so I put Moise in there, where they did TEACCH with him, which is basically an approach where you have a number of skills that the child is supposed to achieve within a very structured environment. And they also used PECS, which is the Picture Exchange Communication System, because Moise had no language. So we started with, these three. And Moise's therapist told me that, he is going to come and see me a few times a week, possibly for a few hours. You are the one who has to do most of the work. And honestly, from that day, I think I became the 24/7 mother/therapist, because I felt like, if my child's progress was, heavily was so dependent on me, I had to step up. There was just simply no other choice. And the one thing I must mention here is that from day one, Usman and I never hid Moise's diagnosis. We shared it with friends. We shared it with family. It didn't even cross our mind that we should not talk about it. Later on, I discovered that a lot of people in Asia, I can speak for the environment and the culture that I come from, are in denial for so long that the children, unfortunately, are the ones that suffer. And luckily, Usman and I were on the same page about being proactive. Whatever step I took to, get Moise into this therapy, this intervention, that intervention, Usman was always behind me solidly. And we decided that we would include Murad, my second son, and our friends also, our circle of friends. We would use them as support to work on Moise. And alhamdulillah, that is how we went forward with this. But, having put all of these things in place, I started developing a lot of anxiety. I wouldn't attribute my anxiety or the source of my anxiety necessarily to Moise's diagnosis, but certainly his diagnosis was a trigger